Which shoe is better to hoop in? The Adidas DON Issue 3 or the Nike KD14? Today we're putting the most recent shoes from Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant's signature shoe lines head to head to see how they compare. But really quick, if this is your first time checking this out, feel free to drop a follow or subscribe wherever you're watching and give this video a like. We would greatly appreciate that. So starting off with the box and the price, the DON 3s get a spider logo in the middle since his nickname is Spider Mitchell. And the KD14s are going to get a simple black box with KD's player logo kind of blown up on top. Not much to speak of there. As for pricing, the DON 3 retails for $110, making these a cheaper option as far as like a signature shoe line is concerned. That's going to be much cheaper anyways than the KD14, which is going to retail for $150. KD is on his 14th signature shoe though, compared to Donovan only being on his 3rd, so definitely keep that in mind. So checking out the appearance for these shoes and starting off with the colorways, today we have the Adidas DON Issue 3 Louisville Cardinals versus the Nike KD14 Ant Pearl. So looking at the DON 3s first, this is the college edition for his shoe. Donovan, of course, attended Louisville before being drafted to the Utah Jazz, but it's not a bad look for this year's model. They definitely did switch some things up too. So these are going to have more of like a crown design running up the midsole, which is pretty nice. They kind of replaced the Adidas logo that was on the tongue as well from last year's model, and now it's going to get a spider logo, and I feel like that looks a lot better. And you're going to get some Louisville branding on that band that kind of runs across the laces, and different colorways get some different markings there. But they took away that wavy heel design that was on the DON 2s, and now they just have a patch on the back of the DON 3s. And honestly, I probably preferred last year's setup around the heel, but the DON 3 it still looks pretty nice. And now switching it over to the KD14s, this is the Ant Pearl colorway or color scheme for his shoes, and he's been doing this concept for a while now, and I really do like it. But looking at the actual model itself, these aren't as simple compared to the KD13s last year. I mean, Nike did bring back the strap for this year's model. I just really like the strap on basketball shoes, so that was nice. And the wavy pattern on the upper is pretty clean, and I really do like that kind of feathered look that these get back around the heel. That's for this colorway specifically. And then I even really do like that air bubble that's on the midsole for this shoe. It's a nice design and a clear upgrade from last year's model as far as the appearance is concerned, in my opinion. But still going to be two pretty good models as far as the appearance goes. So now let's go ahead and see how these shoes hold up on the court. So now getting into more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning. The DON Issue 3 comes with a light strike setup for cushioning, and this is an improvement to the, bounce that was used in the DON Issue 2 from last year's model. I mean, I think these are going to play a little bit softer, so I did like that. And it is pretty balanced from the front to the back. I wouldn't say it's going to be anything too special, but it's also not going to be lacking. The overall impact protection does feel pretty nice. But now looking at the KD14s, Nike uses a full-length Zoom Air Strobel unit that is stitched directly into the upper, and that's meant to keep these soft yet responsive, and the KD14 feels great to play in. Like the insole feels pretty nice, and it won't take a ton of time to break these in, if any at all, so I mean that part is going to be nice. You're going to get a Cushlon foam midsole, which just is going to add to an already comfortable feel. I think the KD14s just give you an overall more balanced feel from the front to the back. Cushioning is definitely one of the better aspects to this shoe from what I've noticed. For materials and support, you're going to get mostly textiles covering the DON Issue 3 with some TPU overlays in a few different places. And the upper has some holes built in, allowing your foot to breathe, which is definitely nice. And just overall, it helps keep the shoe on the lighter side. And the support is not a bad aspect for these either. I mean, you're going to have that crown logo kind of built into the midsole. That is going to play a small role in keeping your foot within the shoe so it just doesn't slide out. So, I mean, the lateral containment is pretty solid on these. And the upper doesn't really move around on any step backs or cuts. I will say that the support probably isn't as nice as the DON 2s though. I mean, you had a more noticeable heel counter to kind of keep your foot stable in those. I just think the upper material was a little bit more firm. But I mean, along with that, I don't think last year's model was as comfortable. So, I mean, I guess something had to give. But, you know, the DON 3 still does stack up pretty solid for these two categories. And I have seen some people talk about, like, you know, having heel slippage in this model. I just haven't really had that problem, so I can't speak on it. But now looking at the KD14s, Nike brought back the strap, like I said, which is definitely nice. Just a nice additional piece that they added. And they also used a multi-layer mesh upper with some added thickness in certain areas to kind of keep your foot in place. So this really gives you a controlled feel while you're playing in this KD14 model. You can just tell that Nike didn't cut the cost on the materials section like a lot of shoes do, so that was nice. And the support is going to be really solid. You're going to have that strap there, like I said, for some additional lockdown. The lateral containment is great. I mean, the upper is pretty sturdy, so you don't have to worry about your foot kind of sliding or moving around. And these are going to run a little bit more up your foot, more of like a mid-top model, so your ankle just feels extra secure within that heel counter. But the materials are going to lead to the KD14s kind of landing them on the middle to slightly heavier side of the scale. Weighing in, it's 474 grams for a size 10.5, and that is this Ant Pearl colorway though. I mean, I had a black and lime colorway that I played in a little while back that did weigh a little bit less. But the Don 3s, they're only going to weigh 408 grams for that same size 10.5. Just having these two shoes in hand and playing in them, you can't feel that weight difference a little bit. That's like one of my only knocks on the KD14 though, is the weight, and honestly it's still not that bad. To finish off with traction, the Don 3s have a similar look to last year's model, just as far as the pattern goes, and they aren't bad, but I still wouldn't say they're great either. They do have a little bit more grip on the floor than the Don 2s, but it's still nothing over the top. They have sort of played inconsistent for me, so I'm not really sold on the design as a whole. But the rubber is pretty durable from what I've noticed, so it wouldn't be a bad option to use outdoors if that's something that you want to do, especially for the lower retail price at $110. But now switching it over to the KD14s, Nike kept the same general concept from last year's KD13 model with those oval patterns on the bottom. That's going to handle your side to side or like your lateral coverage. And then the rest of the design is going to manage more of your like front to back movements. And the traction is really nice aspect for this shoe. I mean, honestly, it's like arguably one of the selling points on this model right there, along with the cushioning. But to finish off with sizing, I went true to size on both of these, and that pretty much works perfect. The length is good, but the KD14s, they maybe run on the narrow side just by a little bit, definitely not by a lot. So for the final ratings and starting off with the appearance, I think both of these shoes look good, but I am kind of partial to the strap on basketball shoes. Not everyone is, but I am. So I'm going to start off going with the KD14s. For cushioning, the Don 3s took a step forward from the Don 2, but I mean, it wasn't a big enough step to really match up with the KD14, so I'm going to roll with KD's line again. As far as the materials, I mean, neither shoe really feels low quality. I mean, the KD14s, I'd probably give it to them if it wasn't for the weight, but I can't really leave that out because sometimes that is a downside. So I'm just going to keep this section as a tie. But looking at the support though, the Don 3s, that hasn't really been an issue for me like it has been for some people, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said they felt the same as the KD14, which just has a more sturdy upper and that additional strap to go along with it. So I'm going to come back to KD14s here, and I'm actually going to stay with the KD14s for the traction category. The Don 3s are just a little too inconsistent, while the KDs are just, consistently good. So that's going to lead to me going with the Nike KD14 as the better shoe to hoop in. Aside from the weight, which I need to stop referencing because it's really not that noticeable on these, there just really isn't a downside on the KD14. You have good cushioning, traction, support, all the above, just really solid on this model. The Don 3s, they made some improvements, but overall they just don't really keep pace with the KD14s as far as the performance goes. Thanks for taking some time to watch. If you want to buy the Nike KD14, just click the link here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio, so feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoe Wear. Peace.